2026, triggering a chain of disasters that is still unfolding across multiple provinces. Tonight we're covering the Eastern Cape and Western Cape. Two regions hit simultaneously, where the damage is being described by officials as absolutely unprecedented. Let's start with what triggered all of this. The South African Weather Service issued an orange level 8 warning for disruptive rain, one of the highest alert categories on record. In some areas of the Eastern Cape, over 300 millimeters of rain fell in less than 48 hours. To put that in perspective, that is roughly 2 months of normal rainfall dumped on the region in 2 days. The soil was already saturated from a wet autumn, which meant virtually none of that water could be absorbed. It had nowhere to go but through people's homes. The Kouga local municipality is at the epicenter of this disaster. The Cougar Dam, which feeds into the Gamtoos River system, surpassed 113% of its total capacity. When a dam exceeds 100%, controlled and uncontrolled releases become inevitable. The water surging into the Gamtoos River Valley created what residents described as a wall of water, a rapid rise that gave communities almost no time to react. The Gamtoos Irrigation Board confirmed massive volumes of water were being forced through the system, dramatically increasing flood risk for every community downstream. The Cougar municipality issued mandatory evacuation orders for multiple communities along the Gamtoos River. The affected zones included Kingsway Village, Big Fish, Gamtoos Mouth Resort, and the Ferry Hotel area. Emergency crews worked through the night to move residents out of submerged homes. Specialized excavation equipment was deployed to clear mudslides blocking access roads. The executive mayor, Padding Bornman, was personally on the ground coordinating relief operations with disaster response technical teams. The town of Humansdorp, the agricultural and commercial heart of the Kouga municipality, took a direct hit. The overflow from the Cougar Dam sent floodwaters cascading into the town's drainage infrastructure. Manhole covers blew off from the pressure. Sewage mixed with rising floodwaters in residential streets. The electrical grid suffered a near-total collapse on the evening of May 7th. Several substations were submerged, triggering short circuits and fires. Multiple pipe bursts were reported across the internal water supply network due to shifting soil and extreme hydraulic pressure. Road infrastructure across the municipality was obliterated. Major arterial roads connecting Humansdorp to Jeffreys Bay, St. Francis Bay, and the farming regions of Hankey and Humansdorp were severed. In several areas, the asphalt simply peeled away from the earth, leaving craters up to 3 meters deep. The R102, the primary route for emergency vehicles and supply trucks, was buried under mudslides. The N2 highway between Blue Water Bay and the Coebrha CBD was closed after high sea swells washed rocks and debris directly onto the roadway. The informal settlements suffered the worst losses. In Thornhill, hundreds of shacks were simply erased. Built on low-lying ground with no structural reinforcement, the structures offered no resistance to the rising water. Maria Lou, a mother of 4 from Thornhill, described losing everything in under 10 minutes. She said the water didn't come through the door. It took the walls. Her children's school books, their blankets, their food, all gone. Residents from Thornhill and the Kwazakili township were relocated to municipal community halls where hundreds of people were sharing floor space with critical shortages of dry blankets and clean drinking water. At the provincial level, the scale of destruction is staggering. Over 4,700 families across the Eastern Cape have been left homeless. The official death toll has reached 100 people, including dozens of children. More than 430 schools have been damaged across the region, with several in Humansdorp remaining underwater. School closures have been extended indefinitely, effectively halting the 2026 academic year for thousands of learners. Around 70 healthcare facilities across the region have sustained structural damage. The Humansdorp hospital was forced to evacuate patients from ground floor wards and transfer others to neighboring districts after water entered surgical theaters and medication storage rooms. The agricultural impact could take years to recover from. Humansdorp serves as the gateway to the Gamtoos Valley, described as the fruit basket of the Eastern Cape. Citrus orchards and vegetable crops are completely submerged. Specialized irrigation systems that cost millions of rand to install have been twisted into scrap metal by the force of the floodwater. Low-lying bridges that connect farming communities to export routes remain closed. Early reports indicate hundreds of cattle and sheep were swept away when the riverbanks burst. The destruction of farm infrastructure represents a direct threat to the province's food security and export economy. Simultaneously, the Western Cape was being struck by the same cutoff low-pressure system. The Garden Route, including the towns of George, Kanisna and Mossel Bay, was hit with up to 200 millimeters of rainfall in 48 hours. Rivers breached their banks. Low-lying areas in George and Kanisna went underwater. The Swartberg mountain tributaries generated massive water surges that threatened local communities. In Cape Town, gale force winds caused widespread damage to roofs and power lines. High-energy waves at Victoria Bay overflowed directly onto beachside infrastructure. The South African National Defence Force was placed on standby for aerial rescue operations. What makes this situation particularly dangerous is the combination of factors hitting at the same time. Analysts are now describing South Africa's situation in May 2026 as a polycrisis, a convergence of extreme weather, failing infrastructure and deep economic dysfunction. Floodwaters are destroying public assets in the south while parts of the north face ongoing drought. In Johannesburg, factories in the Selby district have been without water for over 20 weeks. Preliminary assessments from Limpopo alone estimate flood damage at approximately 1.7 billion rand in homes, schools and infrastructure. Nationally, infrastructure losses from the current flood cycle are being estimated in the billions. As of May 8, 2026, the situation across the Eastern and Western Cape remains critical. The South African Weather Service has not lifted its high alert warnings. Further rainfall is expected to produce continued disruptions across already saturated zones. Officials are monitoring dam levels, river flow and road conditions on a 24-hour basis. Motorists are being urged to avoid flooded roads, low-lying bridges and any area with active mudslide activity. Residents in low-lying zones are ordered to remain on alert and to comply immediately with any evacuation order issued by local authorities. Right now, as we speak, South Africa is living through one of the most catastrophic flood events in its recent history. A powerful cutoff low-pressure system made landfall on May 5, 2026, triggering a chain of disasters that is still unfolding across multiple provinces. Tonight, we're covering the Eastern Cape and Western Cape. Two regions hit simultaneously, where the damage is being described by officials as absolutely unprecedented. Let's start with what triggered all of this. The South African Weather Service issued an orange level 8 warning for disruptive rain, one of the highest alert categories on record. In some areas of the Eastern Cape, over 300 millimeters of rain fell in less than 48 hours. To put that in perspective, that is roughly 2 months of normal rainfall dumped on the region in 2 days. The soil was already saturated from a wet autumn, which meant virtually none of that water could be absorbed. It had nowhere to go but through people's homes. The Cougar local municipality is at the epicenter of this disaster. The Cougar Dam, which feeds into the Gamtoos River system, surpassed 113% of its total capacity. When a dam exceeds 100%, controlled and uncontrolled releases become inevitable. The water surging into the Gamtoos